Hello and happy Valentine's Day to you. What a wonderful day it is to be celebrating love. Welcome to I Love Me webinar. And you know what? Since love is the foundation of everything, I believe self-love really is where it must all begin. Now, we probably each have our own ideas and perceptions of what self-love is. And that's brilliant. And I'm going to ask you in a moment to share in the comment section what self-love actually means to you. When you hear the words self-love, what image does it conjure up for you? Perhaps you already have a practice of self-love. If so, what does that look like? Share with us in the comments section. What does it feel like when you practice those acts of loving kindness to yourself? How does it impact other areas of your life? How does it change things? And perhaps what can you do more of to cultivate self-love? If you've got anyone in your circle, your network, group of friends or family who you believe might benefit from being here today, whether live or on the replay, perform an act of loving kindness for them and drop them an invite or share the link and gift them this 6 steps to self-love webinar. You know, when we can bring it back to this very simple yet sometimes intangible idea of love by sharing outside of ourselves, instantly that brings us into a heightened state of, not to overuse the word love, but bliss and joy and expansion and openness. So I have put together lovingly 6 steps that I believe, alongside all of the simple ideas that we may have, alongside all of the generalized concepts of self-love, which, by the way, are absolutely important. We must, of course, begin with segmenting time every day for ourselves. We must, of course, begin with the bubble baths and the alone time and the sensual massages and the gentle walks in nature. We, of course, must all begin with the foundations of self-love, and that is also self-care. And it's also the traditional idea, isn't it? Let me know in the comments what it means to you. Further than that, I believe that there are a whole host of additional beneath the surface ideas that if we begin to put them into practice, we can take this to the absolute next level. And the first step to that is release. When we are holding on to pain, resentment, judgment, perhaps something from the past, being in a state of love is really quite difficult. It becomes effortful and oftentimes inauthentic if we have parts of us that perhaps are still deeply wounded, parts of us that we haven't taken the time to heal. It becomes almost impossible to not only give love, but also to receive love. So, where in your life are you holding on to something from the past? Where perhaps are you holding on to resentment? What is it that really runs deep within you that perhaps you haven't yet gifted yourself the opportunity, the time, the space to tend to your wounds? We can also look at how we hold resentment towards ourselves for the things perhaps that we didn't do, for the things perhaps that we failed at. Perceivably, I don't believe in failure, just lessons. But we do it, don't we, to ourselves? We hold on to things and we can be often quite harsh with ourselves. So in order to pave the way, it's almost like clearing the garden out, sort of, cultivating the land so that we can be clear and open for the seeds that we want to plant moving forward. As we start to reconnect with those areas in our life that are problematic for us, that maybe they have been hindering us for a while, but we haven't quite got to grips with them, we can start to rise up almost from this, if you imagine a crawling position where we're sort of shuffling through life, crawling through the different various stages of our life and the different areas of our life. We could begin to start to become more present. And as we become present, the next step that I want to share with you today is connect. How do we connect? Connection is not just connecting with ourselves, which is hugely important. So becoming emotionally aware, becoming acquainted with our inner wisdom so that we can begin to trust. And since you are the hub of your world, and since today we're talking about love, connecting daily with yourself is a major key step. And as we connect, remembering who we are, remembering that feeling, that essence, that purity of your true self. And as we start to connect more, now this doesn't just happen once a day or once a month or once a week or once a year. It's something that we must begin to implement as a practice, because you are wise. You are complete already. Often what happens though is we'll become disconnected, and disconnection at the root, disconnection from source, disconnection from self, causes disconnections in all other areas of life. So if you have become disconnected with what you really desire, if you have become far removed from what's going on the inner plane of your world, your emotions, your feelings, the way that situations and people are impacting you, maybe you've become despondent. Maybe you've forgotten that there's a whole support system out there by way of the universe. So remembering who you are is a daily practice, and it assists us in the pursuit of cultivating that constant state of heightened self-love, so that we can begin and continue to allow those ripple effects, those remnants to affect those other areas of our lives. So we're talking about our relationships, we're talking about our health and wellness, we're also talking about the successes that we seek, the goals that we have, the dreams that we have. If we have become disconnected from what we truly want, and often it's not just a disconnection, it's actually an avoidance. It's actually an unwillingness to look at what our heart is telling us. So connecting with the whole of you also includes your heart's desires. You know, our heart is a powerful navigation system that is at the center point of everything. And then our work is to align. Once we have become aware of what our heart is telling us, once we have become aware of what we need to lose and heal and let go of, and what we are being guided to, our desires are simply a preview for what's to come. Our emotions are messengers giving us information, feeding us information regularly as to what we need to pay attention to, where life wants to lead us. And our work after that is to align. And it's a daily practice, as I said. It doesn't just happen in one instance. Aligning can be done through many modalities. Aligning means to be in the most centered state possible in each moment. So imagine the train being aligned on the train tracks. And there are many ways to get back into alignment. And we won't always remain in alignment. A great attitude to have is to be mindful. So be on the lookout for when you feel, sometimes we call it clicked in or centered, or when you feel out of place, off kilter, without judgment. Judgment is something that we often do to ourselves, and we get ourselves in this really negative downward spiral. Oh my goodness, I got so good at feeling good. I was so good at self-love, and now this happened and I feel like crap again. This must be something wrong with me. And of course, it's not true. Like anything in life and in nature, there are ebbs and there are flows. There are ups and there are downs. There are ins and outs. We live in a world of polarity. So of course, that will also lie within you and within your world, in your life. So learning to recalibrate is what we want to focus on. We're not interested in blaming and shaming either ourselves or somebody else when something isn't in alignment. What we're most interested in is how to bring ourselves back to that centered space. And that's something that we do moment by moment, but it's really helpful to give ourselves time. And this is one of the biggest acts of self-love, giving ourselves time to practice daily in I want to say controlled space where we designate 10, 20, 30 minutes a day, whatever's available to you, where we sit or we take time or we shut the door or we turn the phone or the computer off and we reconnect with ourselves. So connection and alignment, of course, they are interrelated, and we will be mastering them both at the same time in our daily practice. Connecting to how we feel, connecting to what we are thinking. And when we can begin to look at what's happening in our thoughts and correlate that to what's happening in our real life, we then become masters. We then become masters. Where in your current reality are you observing something that you don't like? And where perhaps can you relate that back to a set of thoughts that you've been thinking? Maybe a belief pattern. When we are in connection with ourselves, it's much easier to be in alignment. It's much more effortless to make loving, empowered choices for ourselves. When we are connected, or when we are practiced at reconnecting, we often find that we navigate through all areas of life, whether it's our relationships, showing up for our work, as a parent, for our life purpose choices, really in all areas of life. Those choices that we're making are often by default more authentically inspired, coming from that deep, pure place within us. Remember, our desires are a preview for what's to come, and when we are connected, those desires that we are becoming aware of will be naturally and organically more authentically inspired. So the next key component, the next key step towards radical self-love, and this one can probably, I'm going to hazard a guess, probably be seen as quite oppositional. And I don't apologize for this by no means, because as I said, we are quite familiar with the traditional sense of self-love, especially when it comes to self-care. And I am thrilled to bits that self-care has it's become a thing, it's become a movement, you know? Self-care Saturday, right? Me time, you time. I love it. But as I said, I am here to challenge that, shake the tree a little bit, and go beneath the surface even more. When it comes to building and creating a life by design. When it comes to building and creating a life that we really cannot wait to wake up to every morning, self-respect is one of the biggies. And we can be self-respectful by taking ourselves to bed early for a good night's sleep. We can be self-respectful by ensuring that we're nourishing ourselves well. We can be self-respectful by saying no and instilling healthy boundaries in our lives and in our relationships. But I really want to talk about how respectful it is to follow through on something you said you were going to do for yourself, on that strategy or plan of action that you said you wanted to carry out, because it's going to get you from where you are now to where you truly want to be. I want to talk about how respectful it is to choose you. And in the moments where you might find yourself in a dilemma when it comes to focusing on your goals and your dreams and your true inner vision versus a commitment that you're expected to uphold, versus a commitment that has become a habit, perhaps. And as I said, most of us are familiar with the soft side of self-love, the bubble baths and the massages and the duvet days, and that is amazing, but not a lot of us are familiar or are willing to go there with this other, it's the other side, it's like the other side of the coin of self-love. And taking into account all the information that we've covered already with regards to cultivating a daily practice, daily practices of connecting and realigning, daily practices of honoring what was and appreciating that all of our experiences in life will have left their mark, possibly, and will have had an impact, whether positive or detrimental, and that we must take time to release, we must take time to connect, we must take time to nurture and nourish. But a lot of us find it difficult to address the other side of the coin when it comes to self-love. But just so you know, when you've carried out that action and you've kept your word to yourself, you will feel a heightened state of respect for yourself. When you prioritize your passion, whatever that might be, whether it's a passion for painting, whether it's a passion for keeping fit, whether it's a passion for cooking nourishing meals, whether it's a passion for building that six-figure business, whether it's a passion for getting your message out there, or for healing, or for finally standing your ground and cultivating and mustering up the courage to take that leap of faith, you will feel nothing but love for yourself. So what is it for you? What is it that you could begin to carry out to cultivate love through self-respect? What is it that you could begin to do differently that would really amp up this whole feeling, this relationship, strengthening the relationship that you have with yourself through connection, through alignment, but above all through honoring your word, respecting your wishes? So conflict creates unfertile ground. And for the state of love to grow and flourish, we often model by default, and this is not something that we often do consciously, but we often model it by default, the world's tendency to go against the grain. The world's tendency, and we often model it, as I said, because we don't know any different, or it's happening unconsciously. We often model it, this tendency to attack or to attempt to change the unchangeable. You know, the fight against cancer and the war against drugs, and this all these hard-hitting campaigns against, you know, the Me Too movement. It's against men, and pointing out what is wrong, and pointing out and blaming and shaming. And you know what? We cannot change other people. And once we begin to appreciate that and accept that, we can then flip the switch and bring it right back to where our focus can only lay and where our control can only stand, and that is with ourselves. The only certainty in life really is change. But granting ourselves permission to relinquish control over anything outside of us is often the hardest thing to do. It really is. We often have such a tight grip on other people's behavior, or something that the government did, or our community did, or a partner or a child or anything outside of us. And you know, that is the number one step to conflict within us. You know, doesn't necessarily mean we're having constant arguments, or that we're, you know, going out there and marching or protesting, but it does create an inner conflict. And of course, that then creates absolutely infertile ground for what we are talking about today, and that is self-love. So once we give ourselves permission to relinquish control over anything outside of us, and it's not just about, oh, I'll just let it go, or just, you know, I won't look at that, or I won't talk about that, or I won't try and change that. It has to happen on a very subtle, cellular, deep level. And it can take time, of course. But once we begin step by step, and we can bring this back to our daily practice, we can bring this back to connection and alignment and respect. You know, all of these steps are really interconnected. But once we can start to truly, honestly, authentically, not really care what anyone else is doing, and it's not about detaching, it's not so much about not caring, it's more about, I understand that I'm doing me, and all you can do is do you. And it's a really empowering, freeing state to be in. So appreciation. And we've heard, and I'm pretty sure you have, you know, the gratitude movement, and I am absolutely in love with it. Past few years, it's been wonderful to watch various movements and people and you know, spearheading this really very high vibrational state of being, and that is gratitude. As the saying goes, and it really is true, you can't be afraid if you're grateful, and you can't be unloving if you're grateful. So I will say, though, gratitude only works if we truly mean it. You know, if it's coming from a very pure, authentic place. So, of course, we can manipulate our mind. We can work with our mind to retrain it. So there's no harm in, reciting some gratitude affirmations now and again, but do it with consciousness and do it with the knowledge that what we're seeking is the shifting and the recalibrating of our inner experience first, and then the recalibrating of our outer experience. And it can be done. You are really powerful. You are powerful beyond recognition. So you can positively affect your world, your outcomes, your successes, your relationships, your work, your children, your community, your network. You can have an absolutely positive effect. But first, the understanding must come that it starts with you. And more often than not, there is a very powerful lesson for you in each and every encounter that you come across. It's a big one. Understanding that every single moment of every single day, you are being provided with a life lesson or an opportunity to evolve, expand, and grow. And I love this concept because it's a reality, actually, not a concept. Because if we could begin to appreciate even the lessons that have caused us pain, even the lessons that have caused us struggle, discomfort, there is no way that you cannot be in a state of love. Love, appreciation, trust, acceptance, they all vibrate very similarly. And since what we want to cultivate is a state of self-love, a state of love as the center point, as the root, as the hub of you and your world, this is a really powerful step. So accepting the unchangeable, practicing gratitude when it feels authentic and when it doesn't, and if you still want to flip yourself from an undesirable state to a desirable state, be conscious that it's a process and notice the shifting inside of you. Life lessons are your gift. And of course, they provide us with opportunities to become that more heightened, conscious, loving version of ourselves. Think back to perhaps a traumatic period in your life and notice if, even for a fleeting moment, or maybe next time something happens, even for a fleeting moment, you experienced a euphoric sense of bliss. Oftentimes when something is happening, I'll say to us because that's the general language that we like to use, but generally everything is happening for us. But when next time something's happening to you / for you, notice how often there's nothing we can do other than just be present and observe and feel and notice. And when we can appreciate that, it is extremely freeing. So, an empowered, strong, courageous, and trusting individual, as is yourself, is without a doubt a self-loving one. It means that they have gifted themselves the time, the focus, and the energy to build from the inside out. We've all been through stuff. At some point in our lives, we have all been broken. We've all hit rock bottom. We've all been ridiculed, possibly, been hurt, failed, or perhaps heard the word no much more often than our heart has been able to withstand. We may have experienced loss, fear, danger, trauma, all of those things that make us human, right? And to not give up, to constantly get back up, to keep going solidly towards the dream, the vision, existing, caring for loved ones, to keep moving forward, for me, in my opinion, is one of the biggest acts of self-love out there. So step number 6 is strengthen. And this is, again, a daily practice. And first and foremost, we must look at what often will be our saving grace, and that is trusting the process. You know, when things are happening outside of us and it feels like a sick joke, it may feel like the end, perhaps. It may feel like there are no solutions. It may feel like, what's wrong with me? And in those moments, it's the hardest thing to do, to trust the process, to trust not only what's happening, that things are going to be okay, that this too shall pass, but to trust our place at this point in time in our life, to trust our ability to continue to show up in the way that we are to best show up in each and every moment, whether it's forgiveness, whether it's relinquishing control, whether it's dropping judgment, whether it's to stay committed to ourselves and what we said we were going to do, whether it's to recalibrate in a relationship, recalibrate our health and wellness, perhaps. Get ourselves out of a sticky bind with a business, financially, in an altercation with another human being. Trusting the process doesn't just mean trusting someone else, that someone else is going to come good. It means trusting your role and your place, not only in your life, but also in the world. And of course, that takes resilience. It requires constant resolve. It requires getting back up again, moment after moment. And I've written this bit in my book, you know, with being a little bit ruthless and having the tenacity of a 2-year-old. Could you be a 2-year-old again? Fighting for what you truly believe you deserve and desire? And of course, this takes courage. It doesn't just take courage to stand up to someone or something. It takes courage to look inside of yourself, back to that connection slide, you know, and the alignment. It takes courage to receive the information from your inner self, from your inner being, from your heart space, of what it is that you truly want, of where it is that your inner self wants to guide you to, your life purpose. When something has become outdated, or when you need to pursue something new or different, it takes real courage to honor that and choose freely. But of course, above all, that is the most empowered state of self-love that one can be in, to courageously choose yourself, to courageously keep getting up again. And it's like going to the gym week after week after week after week. It doesn't just happen once a year. It doesn't just happen in the spring leading up to the summer. Empowering yourself is a daily practice, just like connecting with your inner guidance, just like healing. We don't just heal from something that happened in childhood. As adults, we're moving through life and we're accumulating on a regular basis energies and wounds and things that people said to us and things maybe that we didn't quite meet the mark with. So we need to revisit them on a daily basis. So daily strengthening, just like going to the gym. Think of it as picking up those dumbbells or practicing that yoga, the plank or downward dog in yoga. So I've given you 6 steps to powerful self-love, to be able to have a positive impact in all areas of your life. And I'm interested to know what's next for you. I'm interested to know what you can implement today based on the notes that you may have written, based on your existing self-love practice, and based on what you've learned. Maybe you've come across some new ideas, some new concepts. So I'm interested to know how you'll implement that today. What adjustments can you begin to make? Now, we're not looking to overhaul everything in one day or even one week. What we are interested in is making simple, achievable, manageable shifts. So I like the word adjustment. Small adjustments. And what adjustments can you make today? Perhaps you've already made a strong decision about how things will change. Do us a favor and share in the comment section what you decided today. What small or even big adjustments you'll make. What did you learn? Let us know. Absolutely love to hear from you. So we're coming to the end of the webinar, and I just want to thank you for being here till the end. Thank you for giving yourself this time. Thank you for being a valued member of our beautiful, ever-growing Upgrade community. And I'd love for you to get in touch. If you don't feel comfortable enough sharing in the comments section, then you can absolutely you're very warmly welcome to share with me privately. And you can also stay connected through all of the social platforms that you see on the screen: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, email, YouTube, LinkedIn, and of course, go over to the website and you can also access me through the website and send me an email there. This, I'm hoping, is not just a bunch of information that you will have gathered today and maybe some notes that you will keep in your journal or on some pieces of paper. Now that's perfect. A lot of us do learn from writing or just watching or absorbing. But I'm really interested to know how you will begin to implement, how you'll begin to take small action steps. Action breeds results. Now, of course, self-love, first and foremost, is a state of being. It's who we are, and our state of being is made up of our thoughts and emotions and what we consume and how we nourish and nurture ourselves and the people around us, our beliefs, our ideas. But in order to actualize all of those things, we must begin to take a step forwards, simply and literally as if we were starting to walk a new pathway. So I'm interested to know, what will that look like for you? What new pathway will you begin to tread today? How will you begin to maximize your state of being as a loving being? First and foremost, loving yourself and loving your loved ones, but also expand that out into the biggest version that it can possibly be in any given moment. Get in touch. Let me know. If you would like a copy of these slides, drop me an email or a message on any of the social media platforms with your email address, and I'll absolutely send them over to you. And also, if you feel you would like to have a conversation with me to further discuss not only self-love, but any area of life that you are wanting to upgrade from a place of connectedness and alignment and soul purpose, then please feel very free to get in touch and let me know. And I'll pop you some questions to take you through to deeper understand if you are suitable for the discovery process, which is of no cost to you. And it's just a conversation that I will take you through to understand if the upgrade work is in alignment with you right now and for where you want to be in your life moving forward. Wherever you are in the world, whatever you're doing, thank you for being here. If you know anyone in your circle, network, family who would appreciate and benefit from this webinar, please feel very free to share it with them. And until next time, sending you so much love from my heart to yours.